Just went back on. It's law Morris. So we have our I don't know if it's because of the thing. Maybe we're still in YouTube jail. Hear me now? All right, cool. So we got up and down. We have got barbecue next week. I'm gonna be over at ET Seton Park, spot number 4, the same place where we shot Rock LL's first video. Down at 73 Thorncliffe Park, 12 noon to 5, and of course the food is gonna be sponsored, catered by 5 principals. So that's July 9th, Saturday, next week Saturday, or this week Saturday. So any mores that are game for that, that's where we'll be at. Spot number 4, ET Seton Park, for the annual barbecue. As well, the Canaanland Moorish Heritage School summer camp from July 4th to the 15th, week 1, July 4th to the 8th, and week 2, July 11th to the 16th. Full day is 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. Half day, 9 a.m. to 12, or 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. And you could email the Heritage School at Canaanland Canaanland.mhs@gmail.com. Canaanland.mhs@gmail.com. And as well, we have the Moorish Museum going to be up and running for July, Monday to Thursday, 3 p.m. to 8 p.m. You could book your in-person tours, 25 notes, virtual tours, 16 notes, and you could email canaanlandguide@gmail.com for more info on that. If you want to do the tour, if you want to check out the bookstore, you want to just come build with the Moors or whatever, we'll be here July 3 p.m. to 8 p.m. Monday to Thursday. And as well, we're going to be having a meeting with regard to the New Brunswick trip, just so we could finalize everything, because we're looking to have everything finalized by end of July. Have everybody who's going to be going, so we could send them all the numbers so they could do whatever they have to do, because they have some stuff planned out there for us when we get out there. We just wanted to start up with going over July 3rd, 2021. It's just like we say on Sons of Allah, we always get the good days when we do class. And today is the anniversary of the Moorish Militia drawdown. So we're just gonna go over some stuff with that. And of course, if you have anything to put out there, feel free to express that. If you look up, there's a book called Supreme Court Gun Cases, 2 Centuries of Gun Rights Revealed, by David Coppell, Stephen Halbrook, and Alan Corwin. Supreme Court gun cases. Griswold versus Connecticut. Do the first 8 amendments to the Constitution protect fundamental rights of the people? Yes. Houston versus Moore. The first mention of the Second Amendment in a High Court decision occurs as a brief remark in a dissent in this case, postulating that the amendment would have little effect on the legitimacy of a state running and arming its militia in the absence of or subordinate to congressional rule. It implies that the amendment was not primarily viewed as a guarantee of state government powers to control state militias. Cruikshank versus United States, 1875. Does the right to bear arms for a lawful purpose depend on the Constitution for its existence? No. Dred Scott versus Sanford. Do free slaves have the rights of other American citizens, including the right to bear and keep arms? No. Duncan versus Louisiana. Is the right to keep and bear arms one of the personal rights guaranteed and secured by the first 8 amendments of the Constitution? Yes. Ex parte Milligan, 1866. The published legal arguments on both sides of this case involving trial of a civilian by court-martial both make reference to the Second Amendment as an individual right belonging to the people. Florida versus JL, 2000. Be illegally carrying a gun? No. Logan versus United States, 1892. Does the Second Amendment guarantee a pre-existing right recognized by the Constitution and not a right created by the Constitution? Yes. Miranda versus Arizona. Where rights secured by the Constitution are involved, can there be any rule, making, or legislation that would abrogate them? No. Moore versus E. Cleveland. Is the right to keep and bear arms among the type of individual rights enumerated in the Bill of Rights? Yes. So on July 21, there was I-95 partially closed for hours after a police standoff with armed men. 11 people were taken into custody Saturday after an hours-long standoff with police early Saturday outside Boston. While police engaged in negotiation, members of the group engaged the public on social media, saying their group was called Rise of the Moors. The heavily armed men were said to be driving from Rhode Island to Maine for training. The incident starting around 1:30 a.m. when state police noticed 2 cars stopped at the side of I-95 near Wakefield, Massachusetts, apparently out of fuel. As troopers stopped to assist, they noticed that some individuals near the cars had military-style gear and were carrying long guns and pistols. Massachusetts State Police Colonel Christopher Mason told reporters, "You can imagine 11 armed individuals standing with long guns slung on an interstate highway at 2 in the morning certainly raises concerns and is not consistent with firearms laws that we have in Massachusetts," Mason said. Police requested backup and thus began a standoff that lasted several hours. The men refused to lower their weapons, saying that they do not recognize our laws, police said. Some of the armed men fled into nearby wooded area, and a portion of I-95 was closed for a man whom the Boston Abdullah Bey said he was broadcasting live from I-95 and said that he told police they had nothing to fear. I reassured them that we are not sovereign citizens, a man who appeared to be Bay said in a live video stream. I assured them that we are not black identity extremists. I assured them that we are not anti-police. I reassured them that we are not anti-government. I reassured them that these men here will not be pointing guns at them. I reassured them that we are trying to come to a peaceful resolution. We are going to our private land to train, which is our Second Amendment right, he said, showing a vehicle he said contained camping equipment. As police tactical teams brought in armored vehicles to surround the area and negotiators interacted with the men, they ultimately surrendered. Middlesex County District Attorney Marion Ryan told reporters the suspects were expected to appear in court on Tuesday morning. There's the date right there. State police don't have any knowledge about this particular specific group, but as state police, it is not unusual for us to encounter people that have sovereign citizen ideologies. I am not saying that this group does, but we have had those encounters before in the past, Mason said at a Saturday morning press briefing. We train to those encounters, Mason continued. We very much understand the philosophy that underlies that mindset, and we train our officers actually at the academy on these interactions and how to de-escalate those situations and how to engage with people that have that philosophy and mindset and resolve these situations in a peaceful manner. The group calls itself Rise of the Moors. The same man appearing to be Bay in a later video said they keep portraying us as being anti-government, but we are not anti-government at all. The group website lists Bay as a leader of the Rhode Island State Republic and Province plantations. According to the site, Bay served in the military for 4 years, some or all of that time in the Marines, after which he began studying Moorish science. That website, Rise of the Moors, explains that Moors are not sovereign citizens because sovereignty does not stand alone, but can rather be considered synonymous with nationality. The records show that the Moors are the organic or original sovereigns of this land, America, the FAQ says. When we declare our nationality as Moorish Americans, we are taking back the position as the Aboriginal people of the land, to which the sovereign power is vested in. Bay's group may be associated with the Moorish sovereign citizen movement, which the Southern Poverty Law Center characterizes as an offshoot of the anti-government sovereign citizens movement. Moorish sovereigns have come into conflict with federal and state authorities over their refusal to obey laws and government regulations, SPLC writes. The Moorish sovereign movement is a rapidly growing group of people who believe that they belong to a sovereign nation that has a treaty with the US, but otherwise operates outside of federal and state laws. J.J. McNabb, a fellow at George Washington University's program on extremism, explained. They rely on an alternative history that borrows from Moorish Science Temple, Black Hebrew Israelism, Nation of Islam, UFO theories, phony Native American tribes, and the pseudo-legal argument crafted by white supremacist patriot groups in the 1970s. So that was one of the initial articles dealing with them. Now, what we also want to put on the record, May 24th, 2022, Massachusetts State Police Colonel's son faces firearms charges after February incident. Reed Mason, son of Massachusetts State Police Christopher Mason, is charged with improper firearm storage, a misdemeanor. Police say he was slumped over his vehicle, smelling of alcohol outside the 19th Hole Tavern in Barnstable 3 months ago. Reed Mason did not comment Tuesday after Clerk Magistrate Keith McDonough found probable cause for charges of improper storage of firearms. In court Tuesday, Barnstable Police Lieutenant Joe Green said officers doing a security check outside of the 19th Hole Tavern in February found the 22-year-old slumped over his vehicle, partially hanging out of the driver's side door. Reading from the report, Green said, while speaking with Mason, the officers were overwhelmed by a strong odor of alcoholic beverage emitting from his person. Green said, reading from the report, his eyes were red and glassy, and he had difficulty answering questions. Mason told the officers he did not need medical attention and that he was sleeping in his vehicle. The officers found 5 unloaded guns, 1 semi-automatic rifle, 4 semi-automatic handguns in the area of the passenger seat, as well as 2 backpacks with an assortment of ammunition, according to a copy of a report submitting to the Barnstable District Court by the police department. Now he had all that and he got misdemeanor.
Wow. Misdemeanor.
Yeah.
And he was kind of stoned.
And he was kind of stoned.
Yeah.
And he was kind of drunk.
Yeah.
And he got misdemeanor. And then these Moors, same thing, minus the alcohol and whatever like that. Mm-hmm. They're still locked up. So when it initially went down and they had their court date and all that stuff and they denied them whatever, the whole thing was revolving around this thing of are they dangerous, are they not dangerous or whatever, right? So they had the dangerousness hearing for them. And the dangerousness hearing in Massachusetts is when the prosecution requests a judge to hold a defendant without bail for up to 120 days. If you lose a dangerousness hearing, you will be locked up in jail without being convicted of anything. It will not feel like you are still presumed innocent until proven guilty. Under Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 276, Section 58A, and if you go to Rise Over Mass website, they explain the whole Section 58A and how it's absolutely unconstitutional. The Commonwealth may move based on dangerousness for an order of pretrial detention or release on conditions for a felony offense that has an element of the offense, the use, attempted use, or threatened to use of physical force against the person of another, or any other felony that by its nature involved a substantial risk that physical. So they had the dangerousness hearing and denied they should be held for 120 days. After that, they're supposed to get released to court, do whatever. We're way past 120 days right now. And they're still in there. Well, actually, 2 are in there. 9 of them got released. That's not put out in the media. They're going to cover everything else. But they're not going to cover that. They've been letting them out, giving them bond one by one. Right? And then there's 2 left in there right now. And one of them, Brother Jamal's trial is supposed to be on the 11th. Right? Yeah, of July. Which we were talking to the Moors with, which is 7-11. We already know 7-11 and the Moors and where that stuff goes, right? Now we're just gonna play this audio clip with regard to that too, just so you can. Audio clip tripping on set.
I'm not gonna read the whole thing because
For May, I thought it was May.
May. Mm-hmm. So April, right? Wait, January, February, March, April, May, right? June, July. So 2 months later, right? So 2 months after the treaty signed, because this is July 11th. This is July 11th. They're talking about this is July 11th. They're talking about we got to go to war with these people. So you're gonna tell me our ancestors were just hominis dominus, all good and everything was fine? Right. So 2 months after the treaty signed, because this is July 11th. This is July 11th. They're talking about this is July 11th. They're talking about we got to go to war with these people. So So you're telling me our ancestors were just hominis dominus, all good and everything was fine?
And then, yeah. We could hit it off. It's not too bad in here. All right, so July 11th is their next date. And then July 11th is a significant historical point with regard to the Moors and the Europeans and our interactions with them, right? July 1st, 2022. Rise of the Moors highway standoff. Where the cases stand now. It has been just about a year since an armed militia group called Rise of the Moors held an hours-long standoff with police on Route 95 in Wakefield. Keep in mind, it wasn't them holding some standoff. It was a highwayman that set up the standoff, right? Prosecutors charged nearly a dozen men with weapons violations. The I-team dug into the case to find out where the men are now and where the court cases stand. Leaders of the group streamed the standoff live on YouTube. The heavily armed men wearing tactical gear and body armor took over the highway. They didn't take over the highway. Right? They didn't take over the highway. Right? The highway was shut down by the highwaymen to give that appearance of them doing this thing. Right? The Moors going camping. The Rise of the Moors said they were traveling from Rhode Island and stopped on the side of Route 95 in the middle of the night to refuel one of their trucks. It was on July 4th weekend, and that stop caught the attention of a state trooper patrolling the road. Police say the men had no permits for the guns and refused to surrender. That led to a 9-hour negotiation and a shutdown of part of the highway. In the end, the men gave up. Police say they recovered pistols, AR-15s, and rifles. In all, 11 were arrested. The self-proclaimed leader of the Rise of the Moors, Jamal Talib Abdullah Bey, told the judge the court had no jurisdiction over them. 8 of the men have now been indicted. The I-team has learned 2 are still being held in jail, in custody in Middlesex Court. All of the cases are pending. Southern Poverty Law Center says the Rise of the Moors believe that they are sovereign Moorish citizens under a treaty with the US and Morocco. They are not subject to state or federal laws. In the live stream video, the men waving a Moroccan flag claimed to be peaceful and said they were on their way to the private land in Maine to train. All of the members of the group arrested, including a 70-year-old, have court hearings this month with trials scheduled to start in August. Now, interesting point of reference is the court date that they have coming up on July 11th is going to be held at the Middlesex Superior Court, which is held at some trade center, some mall trade center or something like that. So there's like, let's just say, they got different stores and whatever in there, and the court has a spot in there, right?
Court, so-called courthouse.
Yeah, so-called court.
It's a spot in the mall.
Has a spot in the mall, right? So
Not like they have own building.
own building, yeah. There's a spot in a mall, yeah, and the mall is called the Trade Center, right? No coincidence, right? Approximately 150,000 square feet of office space at Trade Center 128 has been leased to Middlesex Superior Court for 5 years, while the state completely rebuilds the Edward J. Sullivan Courthouse in Cambridge. Any community in any state is typically delighted when presented with the opportunity to host a courthouse or other significant government entity. In addition to the prestige and community pride, a large operating courthouse like this will inject many hundreds of thousands of dollars each year into the local economy.
Stealing people's money.
Right? Hijacking everybody's stuff. This economic gain will come not only through the creation of new local jobs, but also through significant added revenue for area hotels, restaurants, and other local services. One very unusual difference in this situation is that unlike state-owned facilities, this courthouse building will be fully taxable to the city of Woburn. As a direct result of the court's presence, Cummings staff expect that both Trade Center Park and the entire neighborhood will soon be served with direct MBTA bus service. Ride-sharing services will also be organized to facilitate easy, dependable access to the site for jurors, justices, and attorneys, as well as other court staff and the general public. So that was interesting that this courthouse, so-called courthouse, is in a trade center. And you already know Moore's been telling you people that these people have been human trafficking forever. And that's what they use these venues for, in order to traffic human beings.
The Commonwealth is a corporation. So.
Commonwealth is a corpse too. So it's not far-fetched that they're involved in trading, right? Especially since their building is in a trading center. If that doesn't let you know, then ain't nothing that we could tell you. Superior Court Criminal Action number 2021-00361. Commonwealth versus Jamal Talib Abdullah Bey. Omnibus Memorandum of Decision and Order on Defendant's Pretrial Motions. Defendant Jamal Talib Abdullah Bey stands indicted on a number of firearm offenses as well as one count of conspiracy. Defendant has filed a number of pretrial motions that range from motions to dismiss to suppression of items seized during the incident that led to these charges. An evidentiary hearing was held on the defendant's motions to suppress. The court addresses the following motions: defendant's writ of dismissal, judicial notice and memorandum of law regarding the unconstitutional 14th Amendment, defendant's motion and motion memorandum in support of motion to suppress along with supplemental affidavit, defendant's motion to dismiss in interest of justice, defendant's motion of joinder, defendant's other motions or filings which are cited in the Commonwealth's omnibus response are either repetitive, not actionable, moot, or disposed of. To the extent that any of these motions are not resolved, they are denied after review. Upon consideration of the parties' arguments and briefs along with the evidence from the suppression hearing, defendants' actionable motions are denied for the following reasons. Defendants' papers repeat a number of similar arguments throughout, with a significant focus on the position that their conduct was not unlawful because the Second Amendment to the United States Constitution protects or permits their conduct. Defendant makes also argues that he has immunity from prosecution as a sovereign Moor, and the charges cannot stand because he had no evil intent, there is no injured party, and the court lacks jurisdiction over his case because original jurisdiction only sits in the federal court. So again, showing you the blatant disrespect of the law with regard to them. That one, just like with the Mason, with Mason's son, it's like with Mason's son. Reed Mason did not comment Tuesday after Clerk Magistrate Keith McDonough found probable cause for charges. Found probable cause. That has to be there for there to be any type of case, trial, summons,
And for these guys, they have
whatever.
All guys have no problem.
They have no probable cause. They just saw them pulled over. They didn't get stopped. They just saw them pulled over, went to them.
To bother them.
Right? No probable cause. Part of it is that if there is some type of crime, there has to be intent. There was no intention of anything. They're just pulling stuff from their quote unquote Massachusetts state statutes, whatever, to say they violated something. Right? If the state is only on paper and is not the land, they can't have any laws that they're going to use. If the country is only on paper, not the land, they don't have any laws or whatever. If the city is only on paper, not the land, they don't have any law of the land, supreme of the law of the land talk or whatever that they could bring. The only,
There's only goose.
yeah, right.
It's like killing me.
If Canada's only goose, don't tell me about you got the goose up there with the black robe on talking about they're gonna do some law or something, right? In any type of suit, trial, case, whatever, there has to be somebody injured. There has to be a complainant. There has to be somebody saying, hey, that individual did something, right? Again, if the state is on paper, they can't say somebody did something to them. If the injured party is the queen's mother who's not even around anymore or whatever like that, how is she complaining on somebody for something,
Regina.
right? Not even they said Elizabeth,
It's Regina.
right? They're not even saying Governor General or Attorney General or somebody who's around, who's alive.
Yeah.
They're saying somebody dead is making a complaint against you and bringing you to court for something, right? And again, the court lacks jurisdiction because it's a case of diversity. So once there's conflicting nations, then it has to be moved to a different venue. That low-level venue can't hear it because it's out of their jurisdiction to hear. So what they should have been doing was saying, we don't have jurisdiction over this. Even if we're not going to dismiss it, we're going to move it to a higher court, federal, supreme, international court, or whatever. Them not being able to hear it. Right? And again, based on those three things right there, there should have been nothing. Right? And then on top of that, the dangerousness hearing, which they got denied, they were only supposed to do 120 days. And they were supposed to be released after 120 days.
Under any circumstance.
On any circumstances, dangerous or not. The longest we can hold you is 120 days. So the question arises again is, why is it that they held them longer than 120 days? What is the justification behind, multiple judges? Why don't you just have one judge? How come there's 4 or 5 judges on this one thing over a year? Should be just one judge on this. How come they're kicking judges off, bringing judges on, and all this? Obviously, there's a conspiracy, and the conspiracy isn't on them. Conspiracy is not on the militia. The conspiracy is actually on the individuals who are playing this position of they're the authority, they're the law, so we gotta say whatever like that when they're violating law left, right, and center. Right? Defendant also filed motion to suppress, which raises many of the above arguments in addition to arguing that his vans were subjected to an illegal stop. His arrest violated the Treaty of Morocco, and the caretaking policy was pretext for an unlawful stop or illegal detention. There was no probable cause to search and seize defendant's property, vests, guns, and vans, or to arrest him. An evidentiary hearing was held where the Commonwealth presented a number of witnesses and exhibits, including but not limited to body cam recordings, drone footage, and a YouTube recording by defendant. So when they say, and this was probably when they had the dangerousness hearing or whatever like that, after I seen that stuff there, that's when I tuned out of this and said, this is some BS. Obviously, this is some BS because there's no way that you don't have probable cause, but you're talking about charges and all that. There's no way. There's no way that you say dangerousness hearing. They're dangerous. They present their position with documented proof that they're not dangerous because they had the body cam footage with the highwayman going up to them, shaking hands and all that stuff. Here's the pen, write down your name, going around, having conversations like everything's cool.
So
Obviously, they're not dangerous.
What dangerous?
Obviously, they're not dangerous. Obviously, right? So I tuned out after that. So when they're talking about unlawful stop, illegal detention, and no probable cause to search and seize because they ain't have any warrant or anything like that out there. That was just passing by. See some people pulled over, and you pull over just to see what's going on. You know, ain't no different than anybody else on the highway. You got pulled over, highwayman's gonna stop, see what's going on. Hazard lights are on, right? Defendant is charged with numerous offenses relating to the possession of a large capacity weapon or feeding device and other weapons and or ammunition retrieved from the scene and vehicles. Defendant also is charged with furnishing a false name to police officers and a conspiracy count relative to firearms crimes.
False name.
Yeah. Right. Not the name that he has on a license or whatever like that. Mm-hmm. Right? Because you know they're only going to That's
why I asked that highwayman in the station place when they released me that time if the name and my complexion if they match. Mm-hmm. He said no. Good. Smith, but I look African, doesn't work.
Yeah.
Doesn't work. So you get it.
Yeah. Right. Now keep in mind,
So that should be the false name. The name they want him to use as the real name.
yeah.
That should be the fake name.
Right, yeah.
Fraud name.
Yeah. Right. Because if they're saying that they signed on to UN declarations and all that, mm-hmm. then that means indigenous people have a right to identify. Mm-hmm. They have a right to self-identify. It's not a privilege. No. We have a right to say, I am, and you put the name. Mm-hmm. Now, when you go through all the new stuff, they're going to say the straw name, AKA, and I know you've seen some on your little court stuff try to use the straw name and the name, the free national name together.
It was Thursday. Right. Was it Thursday night? They stopped me. And the same thing too, when I tell him who I am and whatever, he come back and ask me if I'm Norman Smith. I said explanation to that. That's the name they given to me. You got my real stuff there now.
Yeah.
So they knew in their system, they know me at least. They know me. But I didn't tell them Noir. They have that there too.
Yeah.
So I just tell him right now I'm not traveling, I'm just traveling. Taking my conveyance from that part of the place to over here. Because if I leave it over there, they steal the catalytic converter. I'm trying to fix it on the road. If I leave it over there, he said, treasury, I said, yes, you know where. If I leave it over there, they will steal my stuff. So I bring it over here when I'm finished and leave it over here at nights, and when I'm ready to take it back and do my thing back and forth. So I'm traveling across on my ancestors. That was nice. And I don't have ownership. I don't have those things, no. I have a receipt from it. I showed him the receipt. And then he asked me to remove the paper over that cover my VIN to match the receipt with my VIN. And he see it correct. And he knows his people up there sold it to me because it's some Italian or Portuguese, whatever. So you know those names, those addresses you see on the paper, he knows. And he gave it back to me. First he said, let me go talk to my Supreme Court, maybe 3-4 cars in the back there somewhere. He came back, gave it back to me. Have a good night, sir, and fix it up and get to the car going on the road. I get my conveyance.
Yeah.
That's supposed to be no plate, no ownership, no insurance, no driver's license. What else kind of charge they would put on a vehicle?
Yeah.
So-called
Any charge.
all of those they would put on a so-called black.
Yeah. Yeah.
For me, just telling me to fix it up.
Yeah. Right.
This time in American history, the Supreme Court ruled that when the Second Amendment says there's a right to keep and bear arms, that means a right to carry a handgun outside the home for self-defense. The court struck down a New York law that required showing a special need beyond a general desire for self-defense to get a permit for carrying a concealed gun in public. By a vote of 6-3, the court said no other constitutional right requires showing some special need to exercise it, and that's not how the Second Amendment works. Writing for the majority, Justice Clarence Thomas said local governments can still ban guns from sensitive places, but he said that doesn't simply mean anywhere the public congregates. And Chief Justice John Roberts and Justice Brett Kavanaugh said states can still impose licensing requirements, like background and mental health checks and firearms training.
The Supreme Court today said you can't require someone to justify why they want to conceal carry a gun, but it was leaving open where the state could restrict these guns and who could have them.
The decision will have an immediate impact on New York and 5 other states with similar restrictions, but in the ruling's most far-reaching language, it said a concern for public safety isn't enough to justify new gun controls. Justice Thomas said gun regulations must be, quote, consistent with this nation's historical tradition of firearms regulation.
I think this language is going to make it really difficult to justify gun laws going forward and will lead to courts striking down a wide variety of gun safety laws.
In dissent, the court's 3 liberals listed 9 recent mass shootings, including at the school in Uvalde, Texas, and the supermarket in Buffalo, New York. Justice Stephen Breyer said courts must consider the serious dangers and consequences of gun violence that lead states to regulate firearms. We'll get more decisions tomorrow. 9 cases remain from this term, including the one on whether to overturn Roe v. Wade, Lester.
And Pete, what does today's ruling tell us about the makeup of the court currently?
It says that this court's supermajority is now flexing its muscles, the conservative supermajority. Remember, the court has ducked this question of guns outside the home for 14 years. This term, the conservatives had the votes to answer it the way they wanted, and we're likely to see this same 6-3 voting pattern in decisions yet to come, Lester.
Supreme Court ruled Thursday that the Constitution provides a right to carry a gun outside of the home, issuing a major decision in the meaning of the Second Amendment. The court has now taken that ruling to the next step after years of ducking the issue and applied the Second Amendment beyond the limits of homeowners' property in a decision that could affect the ability of state and local governments.
This tough to talk about any decision from the Supreme Court regarding guns without looking at the broader backdrop and the broader context of where we are in this country after a number of mass shootings, including that horrific attack in Uvalde, and is what's happening on Capitol Hill, with the Senate now moving closer, perhaps even as soon as this week, with taking action on what would be the most significant piece of gun legislation in this country in about a generation.
Yeah, that's exactly right. In fact, it'll be almost 30 years since there's been any congressional action like this, if it is to go through both the Senate and the House. The next procedural vote on the Senate side likely to happen as early as today, after 14 Republicans joined Democrats earlier this week in advancing this new law, this new bill, we should say, if it is to become law. Here's what it would do. Effectively, it would enhance those background checks on the youngest gun buyers, those between the ages of 18 and 21, giving authorities in those communities about 10 days to do the necessary checks to see if those individuals are safe to purchase arms. Beyond that, it's also going to direct millions of dollars to many of these states to implement what they call red flag laws, where they would have the ability to confiscate guns from those individuals who are deemed dangerous. This is not a sweeping law. Some states will choose to use the money for other things, like other anti-gun violence efforts in their communities. Nonetheless, it does have the potential to make a difference in many communities. And beyond that, it's going to close what's called the boyfriend loophole. And this is significant. This has been an issue where about 70 intimate partners are killed each month by a romantic partner in this country right now. And what it would do is it would add those dating partners to the federal law of individuals who are banned from purchasing guns if they have been convicted of domestic abuse in the past. This has been a key priority. It was also a significant sticking point. So at this point, it appears that will stay in the final text. It's in the Senate version of this bill right now. It directs money for mental health services and for school security upgrades as well. Again, the Senate is looking at it right now, the potential to vote on it, as you note, by the end of this week. The House could do the same, but many on the Republican side and House leadership have said they are going to they're going to push against its passage. Nonetheless, Democrats obviously have control of the House right now, and we are told by the White House if it gets to them, it could be sent by the end of next month. Hallie.
Peter, I'm going to ask you to stand by as well as I bring in NBC News Washington correspondent Yamiche Alcindor. And Yamiche, we talked about the impact that this decision by the Supreme Court will have in New York. The New York City Mayor, Eric Adams, has said this would be, in his view, a real mess for police. He says this keeps him up at night. You look more broadly at the political context here. A recent Siena College poll found that the majority of New York voters, 79%, wanted the Supreme Court to uphold this law. That obviously did not happen. Talk about the implications down the road here.
Well, this really does come at a politically tense time in our nation's history. Of course, we're talking about the fact that there have been these high-profile mass shootings that have really focused our nation's attention on the access of guns. And Americans in poll after poll have shown that they want to see some sort of new gun laws to really restrict the idea that anybody can just go into a store, get a gun, and then, of course, do mass damage and mass casualties to all sorts of places. I think, of course, that our eyes are now going to be on those states that have similar laws to New York, including, of course, as Pete mentioned, Hawaii and California. And as I've been talking to people who are advocates for new gun laws, they tell me that really America has a unique problem here, and that is that we see every single year more and more mass shootings and also more and more gun deaths. In 2020, we hit a record high for gun deaths. And now we, of course, have the Supreme Court weighing in on the biggest Second Amendment case in more than a decade. It really does show that, of course, the Supreme Court is taking a stand on this issue, but also that Americans might be now even more out of step with the justice's decision in this case. I should also note that, of course, this is coming as lawmakers, as Peter said, lawmakers are debating whether or not they can finally go through and have a bipartisan deal on guns. We have not seen that, of course, with so many other mass shootings. But after Uvalde, when we saw so many people killed, so many elementary school students killed, even Republicans came out saying that they wanted to change the way that people access guns in this country. So this ruling, of course, now changes that conversation. It will be interesting to see what sort of impact that has, of course, on these negotiations.
As a predicate to defendants' motions, this court notes that our Supreme Judicial Court has found that the firearms statutes at issue in this case do not run afoul of the Second Amendment to the United States Constitution. right? The Supreme Judicial Court, the fake court, to pretend that that's a Supreme Court or whatever for that state, is making up whatever. And they're saying that, oh, that doesn't have anything to do with Supreme Court and denying anything. They're actually in favor of when they're actually not. One, because they're not the Supreme Court, they're a Supreme Judicial Court, right? And two, you can't put statutes next to the Constitution and say that these are the same.
That's why the 14th Amendment is a problem. Because it puts people under persons, and if you're a citizen or naturalized, you're under 14th Amendment.
Mm-hmm.
You go to the Second Amendment, it says the right of the people. They keep using persons, not the 14th Amendment. So that's the problem. They made them all corporations, man.
Yep.
They made them all
artificial.
Yeah. Once they went artificial, that was it for everybody.
Yeah.
Everybody now fell under these fictitious powers now, because once they take that position, and then the people aren't doing what Moors are saying, challenging jurisdiction and all that stuff, then whatever they say stands. You acquiesce, right? Which is why they even went to motions, because when they filed affidavits, they dismissed everything. They say, well, okay, well, if you're going to dismiss the affidavits, then we'll attach the affidavits to your motions. And then they still denied it, because they have jurisdiction over motions, which again is supposed to show the disregard for the law by these people. That if you deny the affidavit, that's disregard for the law. Why are you denying the affidavits? But then if you're also denying the motions, is it because the affidavits attached to them why they denied them? Is it because it's discrimination why they denied them? And any option that you look at as to why they denied shows that they're violating and they're not even dealing with law, right? Big exposure for them, right? But again, like we said in the title of this, it's 1 year later. Why are you still NBC? How the Moors go on the highway? No shots fired. All the people got kidnapped. 11 of them kidnapped. 9 of them are out right now. You're still over here playing Negro Black Color. You didn't get the message from that thing yet.
What's on World Star?
Stuff made World Star. If that made World Star, that means all these people know what's up. Because all of them, when baby mom's doing some BS, you got 1 million hits on it. When baby daddy's doing some BS, you got 1 million on it. When children twerking or whatever like that, you got 1 million on it. Okay, Moors on the highway, no shots fired. What's the issue? What is the denial about? How come the people aren't running to this thing to get into this and figure their stuff out? Because even he told these Moors, it's gonna be only a handful saved, with fingers left over. So we ain't surprised that people are looking at this and they're not jumping on board.
Blood beside you, dumb as hell beside you.
Yeah.
Come from the same parents and beside you, and you're dumb as hell.
Yep.
I like a slave name.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Like I see Marcus Garvey, grandson. Oh, my grandfather had this name a long time, and I like it. And you Freemason, you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because Garvey has to change that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
He was joking it off in his
Yeah. Play it off. Yeah.
My dad had this name a long time, and
Yeah. Right. Motion to suppress. Defendant filed a number of papers focusing on suppressing evidence obtained as a result of his arrest and seizure of his tactical vest and vehicles at the scene. The court finds the following relevant facts, with others reserved during the discussion below. Facts. Defendant and a few associates as sovereigns were stopped along the highway in Massachusetts at approximately 1 a.m. July 3rd, 2021, while refueling their cars midway through a trip from Rhode Island to Maine. Massachusetts State Trooper Ryan Casey was on duty and observed the cars in the breakdown lane with their hazards on. The weather was rainy and misty and visibility limited. He stopped to ensure that the parties were not in distress. Trooper Casey alit from his cruiser. He observed a group of men carrying rifles next to the stopped cars. He spoke with defendant, who was later identified, but used only his first name at the scene. Defendant, who was carrying a loaded rifle on his shoulder, was dressed in camouflage, wore a tactical vest with similar body armor. There were two other men in the immediate vicinity that were similarly dressed. One carried a long gun with a magazine, while the other possessed a rifle. Trooper Casey was wearing body camera that was activated and recorded all audio video throughout. Defendant told Trooper Casey that he was traveling from Rhode Island to Maine and had stopped for refueling. Trooper Casey asked whether anyone had driver's licenses, but no one had an official license from any state. Defendant told Trooper that he owned the vehicles, but they were all unregistered. At some point, defender requested supervisor. Trooper Casey told him he's got one on the scene. Trooper Casey asked defendant to have everyone put away their weapons, as he did not want his supervisor to get alarmed, but the defendant refused. Trooper Casey asked if he had a license to carry the firearms, and defendant told him no, because they were from Rhode Island, which did not require a license. Trooper Devote, who had arrived at the scene too, told the men to put away the weapons, but they refused again. Waiting for additional backup, Trooper Casey began investigating who the drivers were. He told defendant that the drivers could be arrested for not possessing licenses. Trooper Casey informed defendant that they could not drive them because of the lack of licenses and registrations. And then you can go to all the right to travel cases or whatever like that to show that that's some BS. Doesn't matter what the situation is. The whole point of not registering the vehicles is so that they're not in the jurisdiction to be told you need a license, you need a this, you need a that, you need a whatever, right? During the interchange, a trooper were told that these men were traveling up to Maine from Rhode Island to train as militia. Defendant told them that they did not have social security numbers and were not born in the United States. Defendant also began to provide legal grounds to support his view that because he was driving between two states that did not require gun licenses, federal law exempted them from being licensed in Massachusetts as long as they did not make unnecessary stops. At this point, the troopers had not restrained, detained, or arrested anyone, and no one had been read their Miranda warnings. Defendant and many of the other militia were still carrying guns and refused to store them in their vehicles. The armed militia outnumbered the police at this point. Right? What's that point? What's the point of that point about them being outnumbered or whatever when everybody's peaceful? Doesn't matter if it's 20 people to 1. If there's a peaceful conversation happening, if the intercourse isn't hostile, then there's no need for alarm. If there's no need for alarm, then nobody's dangerous.
The first article you're reading, they said they were like on the highway for 9 hours negotiating.
Yeah.
So it means you've been having that.
Yeah.
So
9 hours of communications. No shots fired. All right. 0 shots fired. All right. Defendant admitted that the weapons were firearms. Trooper McDevote told defendant that he was not under arrest, but that they needed to review the statutes to make a determination as to whether they were to be detained or not. Why they go into statutes? Why don't they just go to the supreme law of the land if they want to know whether or not they're doing something right or wrong?
Yeah, to resolve it.
Right? If you're going to resolve it, why are you going to, if they say, we're sovereign, we have a treaty with the U.S. How come they didn't go to the treaty even?
Go check it out to see if it's true.
To see if that's true. Why they go into the statute? because they know that that's where their power lies.
14th Amendment.
14th Amendment. Trooper McDevout, and then also too, the other side of this is the people who on our side of the nation, like Drew Ali said, claimed that I was only a joke and unreal and all that stuff, and they didn't go to those that know law and ask them, is, you know, what do you think about this case or whatever? Because every individual who I approached with regard to this case, blacks included, they say they ain't do nothing wrong. Why are they doing this? Like, why are they doing this? What's the point of doing this if they didn't do anything wrong? They had arms, you know what I mean? And then they put out their thing on there, you know, we got arms all the time or whatever. Like, what's the issue? Right? Regardless of the state, it didn't matter. Because majority of people, regardless of what position that they take in their life, they know that the supreme law of the land is the Constitution. Covers everything. There's no going around it.
Cover every state.
It applies in all cases, at all times, right? But you have people on our side that's talking about, oh, they should get life. They should get this. They're gonna do this to them. They're gonna keep them forever. They're gonna whatever. And then these people have not one word to say to these colonists who are violating the law. Zero. No comment on the colonists. Mm-hmm. All they want to do is talk crazy about Moors who are standing up for something. Mm-hmm. And then these dumbasses not realizing that these Moors even standing up for them.
Mm-hmm. Standing up for us.
No, them or not. Mm-hmm. The whole point is that this is not the Rhode Island militia. It's not the Jamal militia. It's not, you know, some Moorish Science Temple militia. This is the Moorish militia. This is for everybody to have a militia who says that they're Moorish. Just like all these Europeans have their militia, so that anybody who's European, they're protected. Mm-hmm. Right? Because everybody knows by this time they should know that these people aren't government and all that stuff. You better have something.
You remember over here with the Indians when they do their thing? Remember some years ago? The blockade and they got their guns and everything out. How come they didn't?
Yeah, same situation. Trooper McDevout became concerned that some of the militia were situated by the tree line further away. He called in reinforcements to assist and to provide backup. Trooper McDevout told defendant that the other militia that they were under arrest. Eventually, the militia laid down their weapons, acquiesced, and were arrested. Defendant was taken into custody and his tactical vest seized. The vans were checked for booby traps and explosives, then towed to the barracks awaiting a search warrant. Oh, so they didn't have a search warrant. So how they know what's in there?
Yeah.
If they didn't have a search warrant. And if they didn't have a search warrant and they searched, and then that's a legal search, then that means everything's supposed to be dismissed. No probable cause, no search warrant, no you bring up, hey, where's the search warrant with any situation? And these people are on their heels. They don't want to deal with it. Because that's imperative. If you're gonna search, you need a warrant to do that. Off the top. And don't show me some blank paper and all that type of stuff. Stuff signed by a judge saying that you could do this. Right? And again, this is not what Moors are saying. This is the court stuff saying, admitting that they didn't have a warrant.
Their own words.
Their own words. Analysis. There is no question that Trooper Casey did not initiate a stop in any constitutional or practical sense. The militia's vehicle were already parked on the side of the highway with their hazards on. Trooper Casey testified that visibility was low and he was unable to make out anyone before he exited his cruiser and walked up to the defendant. The court not only credits Trooper Casey's testimony that he stopped to offer assistance, but frankly, there was no other explanation available given to the totality of facts, including the body camera video. In carrying out the community caretaking function, a police officer may, among other things, check on a stopped motor vehicle in the breakdown lane of a highway. See Commonwealth versus Matteo German.
What's that? They said the car stopped at I-95, the sign, right?
Yeah.
It's usually just a street pole and a light there. So at night, there should have been some light.
Yeah, not there though,
Not there.
because that's just like we talk about that when we're going to Ottawa and all that, how there are certain stretches where they you don't want to get broke down out here or whatever. Right? Defendants suggesting that Trooper Casey's initial inquiry exceeded his authority or was unlawful is simply frivolous and contrary to well-settled law in the Commonwealth. Right? Well-settled law in the Commonwealth. Not well-settled law in the country. Not well-settled law in the Republic. Well-settled law in the Commonwealth, which lets you know that they're creating a jurisdiction, right? And they're trying to do things in this jurisdiction that they created. The fact that Trooper Casey asked for driver's licenses did not exceed his authority either. This is also well recognized as part of the community caretaking function under these circumstances. Defendant also argued that Trooper Casey's community caretaking function turned into an investigation which violated his rights. This argument is primarily based in a distorted interpretation of Second Amendment jurisprudence. Defendant argues that Massachusetts has no authority to prohibit residents from traveling from other states which do not require licenses to carry firearms through Massachusetts to another no-license state. This court need not decide this issue since defendant was not simply traveling between such states, but was stopped and carrying a loaded firearm on the side of the road in Massachusetts in violation of Massachusetts law. In violation of Massachusetts law. Not in violation of supreme law of the land. Not in violation of some international document, international declaration, international law, or nothing like that. Massachusetts law. Which again, should let the dummies know that they're creating assumed jurisdictions. And once they start creating assumed jurisdictions, know that they're in error. Because they can't create stuff to fit their situation when they feel like it. They got oaths to uphold and defend Constitution.
They swear to that.
Swear to that. Based upon the totality of facts up to this point, Trooper Casey could not only reasonably suspicion to investigate further, but had probable cause to arrest defendant for openly carrying a loaded firearm, as this is a crime in Massachusetts. So how come when they got pulled over and they were having this conversation with the highwayman, and he asked them, hey, you guys have probable cause? They said they don't know. If they said that they don't know if they have probable cause, how's the court saying they had probable cause to arrest? If their own language, the highwayman's own language was, we don't know if we have probable cause. We're just waiting to hear what these people are saying. We're just making sure you guys don't shoot the place up or whatever. But we're not threatened or anything like that. You know what I mean? We're just waiting to see what's going to go down. We're waiting to hear from the higher ups what they want to do. But we don't know if we have probable cause. We're just here. Out of their own mouth. Right? The fact that he chose not to arrest the defendant without backup is evidence of his restraint, good training, and a desire to avoid escalating a situation that had a concerning appearance on its face. Before McDevitt told defendant that he and the other militiamen were under arrest, defendant had not been restrained or stopped in any constitutional sense. So obviously there's no threat. With all those guns and whatever out there, there were still no threat. Zero threat at all whatsoever. No force was used to take any militiaman's weapon, and everyone was free to move about. Obviously, there's no threat.
No.
Obviously, they're not dangerous. Obviously, there's no probable cause. Because if they're free to walk around with the long guns and all that stuff, and highwaymen's not telling, no, don't move and all that stuff like they do with Negroes when they got a cell phone. Negro has a cell phone, they got them on the ground, don't move and all that stuff. These Moors got long arms, they letting them walk around. Nobody telling them freeze and all that stuff. And then the dummies can't see that nationality is the order of the day. No shots fired. No, what did they say? They surrendered. Right? And that was only because stuff been going on for 11 hours. The hell are you guys doing? Obviously, we're gonna yield. Obviously, we're gonna acquiesce. Because why are we out here for 11 hours? For what? What's the purpose of us being out here? Just out here. You guys can go to the truck, get something to drink, get all these Moors. Water was done, food was done, everything was done by this point.
Can't even go to the restroom.
Haven't gone to the washroom 10 hours? Please, people are gonna yield. Right? The fact that he chose not to arrest defendant without backup is evidence of his restraint, good training, and desire to avoid escalating. Before McDermott told defendant that he and the other militiamen were under arrest, defendant had not been restrained or stopped in any constitutional sense. No force was used to take militiaman's weapon, and everyone was free to move about. There was no evidence presented that defendant believed that he was not free to leave or constitutionally detained until he was arrested. Defendant's motion to suppress evidence based upon an illegal stop or detention is denied, even though they admitted that they didn't have a warrant to search. They admitted that out of their own mouth. They didn't have a warrant. So then how is the motion to suppress evidence denied? Because if there's no warrant, then you don't know what they took from them, these Mormons. You don't know what they took from them, right? There's no catalog of what was taken. So if they didn't say, well, we took A, B, C, D, when it's time for everything to be done, how are they getting their stuff back? Right? Or was this a thing of, oh, well, let's disarm this militia because they're Moorish. And we can't have Moors having this type of power. They got enough power with the right to travel and ID and taxes and all that stuff. We'll give them that. But we're not giving them, you get to walk around with arms and all that stuff, shut highways down and all that. We're not giving you that. It's not happening. Because that would absolutely show that we have no more power. The Moors have a militia, which militia is going to turn into army, military, whatever, right? And then militia has people who used to work for them that train from them. And then now they're taking that training as intellectual property because it's in here now. It's not this is based on experience now. It's nothing that I owe you, right? And I'm going to go over here and train all these other Moors, and then you're going to have all these militias popping up in every state, Moorish militia in every state. That's going to be a problem for these people. Even though, there ain't no violence or anything like that. There's no, us rushing Senate buildings and all that stuff and kicking in doors of government buildings and all. That's not what we have a Moorish militia for, right? Can't have it.
We don't help make sort of, we start our own army, it's gonna be for us, we're not gonna go somewhere else, cause some turmoil in some other country, and they train the militia to cause more issues over there, like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Any other comments? Just get some of these bots out here.
Listen to YouTube, at least drive home point, statute against what's constitutional, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's just.
The arrest. Any suggestion by defendant that he had not committed a crime and was not subject to arrest is misplaced. It is illegal in Massachusetts to carry a firearm unlicensed in public. Defendant was openly carrying a loaded firearm on a public highway. The troopers had probable cause to arrest defendant, and defendant's creative suggestions that he is immune from prosecution is frivolous on their face. See discussion below. Once arrested, the troopers also had the right to search his person and to take his clothing he was wearing incident to arrest. This includes the tactical vest and its contents. The search of this person and seizure of that property was lawful, and his motion is denied. Even though they said we don't have probable cause. If they're admitting out their mouth on their own body camera, we don't have probable cause, we're just here, then they don't have probable cause. Because judge whoever wrote this up or denied stuff, he wasn't there. Colonel whoever wasn't there. Prosecutor wasn't there. State of Massachusetts definitely wasn't there. Commonwealth definitely wasn't there. So the evidence is based on who was there.
Who was there? And who was there said no problem?
No probable cause. Nothing. Right? And again, it's supposed to, this was supposed to be.
And the Moors told them where they were going.
Yeah, it's not like they were hiding anything. They let you know where they're going, right? They had a conversation with you. It's not like they were, not having the when you see some of those exercise their rights more, and they're getting, they're having agitating speeches and all that stuff. I gotta tell you nothing and all that stuff. It was none of that. It was a conversation. You know what I mean? Like, what's the issue here? What is the problem? And again, it's supposed to be for the people in the back who talking shit or whatever about Moors, and they don't know this and they don't know that. It's supposed to be for them to be looking and say, hey, hold on a second. Yeah, how come there was no shots fired and all that stuff? Guys out here, doing nothing, they're getting shot up. How come they're going so far to try to make it seem like they were about to go do some Waco thing or something like that, or they were gonna go do some criminal activity, or they were about to go hold up some building, the government and whatever like that, and they're anti-government, and why are they pushing this whole threatening thing when these are some of the most peaceful people that you know? These Moors ain't about no violence or anything like that.
It should be on their record as the most peaceful set of people.
Peaceful. The vehicles. Defendant also claimed ownership and an expectation of privacy of all the vans. His motion suggested that the police search the van illegally at the side of the road. Defendant's challenge quickly falls to the wayside also. After defendant and his militiamen were arrested, these were concerned for their safety that the vans might have live explosives and possibly booby traps. It was also It would also be reasonable to do a walkthrough to make ensure that no other armed militiamen were hiding in these vehicles. These concerns were reasonably objective and presented exigent circumstances warranting the quick walkthrough to avoid any harm to law enforcement. The search was sufficiently minimized and was proportional to the risks faced by police under the totality of circumstances. This all assumes that defendant had an expectation of privacy in the areas of the vehicles that the police viewed. While this court has been liberal in permitting any evidentiary hearing, defendant failed to establish that he had an expectation of privacy in his vehicles. His alleged ownership, while enough for a hearing, fell short of establishing an expectation of privacy of the vehicle compartments viewed by the police. Ultimately, the entry, and then on that part too, don't forget that was part of the whole YouTube video too. When they were live on YouTube, was showing the back of the thing. That all we have is camping stuff in here. Like we have all arms on us, but everything in there is camping. Why is there issue with camping equipment? Right? Ultimately, the entry to the van was minimized and proportional risks faced by the officers. The initial observations were made in plain view based upon exigent circumstances described above and during the evidentiary hearing. Search warrants were later obtained to search the vehicle and closed containers found therein. Again, defendant's motion to suppress the vehicles is denied. Again, you need a warrant if you're going to search. And if you say we have probable cause to search without a warrant, then there should be something that you found to say, okay, well, yeah, we found something, so this is why we did the illegal search in the first place. And then nothing was found. So if nothing was found, then where is the idea of probable cause, right, for searching? Motions to dismiss. Defendant filed a number of motions to dismiss. These are addressed below. This motion raised many of the same issues addressed in the above defendant's motion to suppress, right? Going back to the thing that Taj Ribi always says about the redundancy of going over the same stuff over and over and over and over again, because that's really all it is. This is not some far-fetched, you need 500 books tacked to the ceiling to figure this stuff out. Stuff is basic. It's really in harmony with common sense. It's really in harmony with you just using your basic intelligence and figuring this stuff out. As soon as you can't use basic intelligence to figure this stuff out, know that they have something that they're going to be able to use to get you to go on the side of where you're not supposed to be going. The court will not repeat that analysis and denies this motion in as much as it relies upon the legal arguments. In respect to defendant's other grounds to dismiss this action, the court finds as follows. Defendant generally contends that there was insufficient evidence presented to indict him. After review of the grand jury minutes, it's clear that the Commonwealth has presented sufficient evidence to satisfy all elements of each indictment. Defendants contend that since no party was injured, federal law prohibits his prosecution by the state since his conduct was allegedly protected by the Second Amendment. The core of this argument is that the Sixth Amendment requires a corpus delicti, and that since no one was injured, there is no crime. He also argues that there was no proof that he had evil intent, which also prevents this prosecution for similar reasons. Accordingly, the logic goes, this case must be dismissed. Again, the Supreme Judiciary Court has found that the charged statutes do not offend the Second Amendment, finding that does not violate defendant's due process or the Second Amendment. Cassidy versus Commonwealth, rejecting facial constitutional challenge to GL and others. Commonwealth versus McGowan, statute criminalizing improper storage of firearms in one's home does not violate Second Amendment. Commonwealth versus Allen, defendant cannot challenge statutes banning large capacity weapons when defendant failed to apply for a firearm identification card. Massachusetts firearm statute did not violate Second Amendment. The defendant's citation to District of Columbia does not change this conclusion, as the Heller ruling does not preclude the states from regulating who may purchase, possess, and carry firearms under the Second Amendment. There is also no requirement that the specific harm to any other person or evil intent be proven before prosecuting a person for violation of Massachusetts firearm statutes. It should also be noted that the corpus delicti doctrine applies in Massachusetts when the only evidence is the defendant's statement. The evidence here includes direct evidence of defendant's violation of the charged statutes. Defendant challenges the indictment based upon the misreading of GL 140-129. The evidence of that defendant was carrying on. The evidence is that defendant was carrying on of the firearms on the side of the road loaded. This conduct falls far outside the exemption in that statute. Therefore, this exemption does not protect him from prosecution. The defendants above motions to dismiss are denied. Judicial notice and memorandum of law regarding the unconstitutional 14th Amendment. Defendant contends that his self-declared affiliation with the Kingdom of Morocco and his Moorish descent exempts him from prosecution in Massachusetts. Definitely wasn't affiliating himself with the Kingdom of Morocco, right? Which again goes back to show that they're gonna say whatever they gotta say to make sure that the story that's presented is in their favor. And then if they bring up Empire of Morocco, then that cancels their whole argument. Anything that they say is void now, right? He also argues that the 14th Amendment was never ratified, so this court does not have jurisdiction over him. The 14th Amendment to the United States was ratified and certified by the U.S. Secretary of State in 1868. See Coleman versus Miller. The ratification of the Secretary of State's certification of the 14th Amendment is conclusive on the courts. Consequently, any doubt that defendant has as to the ratification is a political question, not a legal question. Oh, so if it's a political question, not a legal question, then that goes to the same thing of the diversity. Because diversity is a question that's being presented to challenge them. And once you challenge them, they don't have say once you challenge them. The fact that you bring up a challenge to them diminishes their powers, because they're not supposed to be challenged according to them, because they are the court, they are the judge, they are the prosecutor, they are the statute is the law and all that stuff. Well, once you challenge, that shuts all that stuff down that they're talking about. And they're supposed to be honorable if they have oaths to the Constitution. Now, if they don't have oaths and all that stuff, then that's a whole different thing. And then if they don't have oaths, then now you got to start questioning, well, how come these people don't have oaths if they're saying that they're the law?
You gotta swear to some more.
You got to swear to something. United States versus McDonald. Defendant argument that the 14th Amendment does not apply to him fails. The defendant also contends that he cannot be persecuted because of a 1787 treaty between the United States and Emperor of Morocco, despite the fact that defendant has failed to provide any evidence that he is a subject or citizen of the Kingdom of Morocco. That's two different things right there. He argues that he is a political prisoner of war which somehow triggers the treaty, and it should lead to his release and dismissal of instant charges. The argument completely lacks legal or factual support and therefore must fail. Even if the defendant was a citizen of the Kingdom of Morocco, the cited treaty does not change the outcome here. This treaty pertains to commerce, shipping, and relations between the governments. Isn't the court in a trade center? If the court's in a trade center, then a treaty involves commerce, and when commerce is trade, then what are they talking about? The actual court is in a trade center.
It's going direct to commerce.
Yeah, directly dealing with commerce. Right?
And it says also or relations, right?
Yeah.
These are relations as well. Like even if you don't want to give it to commerce, kind of.
Yep.
Relations between two different.
Just two, right, again, and the treaty pertains to commerce, shipping, and relations between the governments, right? And then that should say the treaty pertains to commerce, shipping, and relations between two governments in diversity, which again sets the standard that, if it's diversity of citizenship, these people shouldn't be hearing anything. It's out their jurisdiction to hear it, because it's two different nations that are in conflict, right? Which again, when you go back to the treaty, it explains that. If a European should whatever or more, and if a Moor should whatever European, then it should be handled this way, right? Nothing in the treaty bars criminal prosecutions for conduct committed in Massachusetts or the United States for that matter. And then, which was a killer too, that they went and they used Marrakesh Caliphate of Amexem Incorporated versus New Jersey and Pitt Bay versus District of Columbia, which when you go research Marrakesh Caliphate and Pitt Bay, you realize that these people aren't with the Moorish movement like that. Right? These people are package selling people. These people are individuals who would fall under the sovereign citizen, anti-government, whatever. Right? Defendant argument that he is immune from the laws of the United States or Massachusetts because of this treaty is nonsensical, as every U.S. citizen, resident alien, or Moorish citizen must conform their conduct to the laws of whatever sovereign they enter or reside. Right? And again, going back to this whole idea of Moors aren't U.S. citizens. Moors aren't resident aliens, or Moorish citizen. And then they said Moorish citizen, M-O-R-R-I-S-H. That's not who they claim to be. They didn't claim to be M-O-R-R-I-S-H. And then what is a M-O-R-R-I-S-H? Because I don't know if that has nothing to do with Moorish militia. Matter of fact, Moorish militia is spelled M-O-O-R-I-S-H. So where do they get this M-O-R, unless they're, again, assuming jurisdiction? Creating fake jurisdiction because they already know niggers don't read. So they can say whatever they want and people are going to go with it. That alone disqualifies their position in saying that, oh, well, this is a spelling mistake. Well, this is a transcript. What do you mean it's a spelling mistake? And then you're using this as precedent. Right? This includes Massachusetts, United States, or the Kingdom of Morocco. Again, go into that whole thing about kingdom when ain't nobody talking about any kingdom around here. Right? Even if this treaty did apply, defendant is not immune from prosecution because of his alleged Moorish citizenship. Yeah, if you say that it's alleged, of course it's not, but it's not alleged. They are Moors, so we have our own jurisdiction. And then when you go to Zodiac Constitution, it tells you about Moors in these people's courts and that they don't got jurisdiction. Right? Defendant further argues that the federal court supplants the state authority to prosecute criminal cases because it has original jurisdiction over all cases and controversies arising out of the laws of the United States. Again, the defendant's logic is flawed as his language refers only to civil controversies arising out of laws, treaties, etc. of the United States, and those involving diversity of citizenship claims valued at more than $75,000. The federal court also has, so diversity of citizenship claims valued at more than $75,000. So if they had 3 trucks out there, they have all these arms or whatever like that, I bet you it's more than $75,000. I bet you the 2 trucks alone that they illegally searched are $75,000.
So he said that the defendant was using articles regarding treaty laws and the Constitution, right?
Mm-hmm.
So he was using Article 3, Section 2. The Constitution, he was following that?
Them? Just read that. Yeah, read that out right there since you got it.
Article 3, Section 2, the judicial power shall extend to all cases in law and equity arising under this Constitution, the laws of the United States and treaties made or which shall be made under their authority, to all cases affecting ambassadors or other public ministers and consuls, to all cases of admiralty, maritime jurisdiction, to controversies to which the United States shall be party, to controversy between 2 or more states, right, between a state and citizens of another state. No change by the 11th Amendment between citizens and of different states, between citizens of the same state claiming lands under grants of different states, and between a state or citizens thereof and foreign state citizens or subjects.
Mm-hmm.
So the treaty is there, mentioning that about your congressional record information, which I know he stated the 14th Amendment wasn't ratified.
Yep.
They're saying it was.
Yeah. And then the only anything after 10th Amendment, not even nothing to be looking at.
Exactly.
The federal court also has jurisdiction over criminal cases that is limited by the text of the U.S. Constitution itself, including the 10th, 6th, and 14th Amendment. The federal court's jurisdiction does not usurp this court's authority over the instant indictments and the defendant who was arrested for crimes within this court's jurisdiction. The defendant's motion to dismiss is denied. Motion to dismiss in interest of justice. This court does not have the authority to dismiss a criminal indictment simply because the court disapproves of a statute. This would violate the separation of powers clause in Article 30 of the Massachusetts Declaration of Rights. To the extent that this court does not have the power to dismiss cases in the interest of justice, defendant has failed to provide any legal or factual basis for this court to exercise thus discretion in the case. Defendant's motion is denied. Motion for joinder. The trial court has discretion about which cases shall be tried together or joined depending upon logistics. The case depending on logistics and cases, similarities, etc. This issue shall be reserved for the trial judge. Order. Defendant's writ of dismissal denied. Judicial notice and memorandum of law regarding unconstitutional 14th Amendment denied. Defendant's motion and motion of memorandum in support of motion to suppress along with supplemental affidavit denied. Defendant's motion to dismiss in interest of justice denied. Defendant's motion for joinder is reserved for the trial judge. Defendant's other motions or filings which are cited in the Commonwealth's omnibus response are denied to the extent that they are not actionable or are mute at this time. June 16th, 2022, James H. Boudreau, Associate Justice, Superior Court. Associate Justice. Right? And again, that was the omnibus memorandum of decision and order on defendant's pretrial motions, number 2021-01 6-00361.
We are on Interstate 95 in Massachusetts, near exit 57, mile marker 57.4. They specified in the news that we're anti-government, but we're not. We're not anti-government. We're not anti-police. We're not sovereign citizens. We're not black identity extremists. I have specified multiple times to the police that we're abiding by the peaceful journey laws of the United States, federal courts. So just look up Title 18 of United States Code, subsection 926 alpha or 925 alpha, if I'm not mistaken, as well as the decision of the United States Supreme Court, Young versus Harris, which specifies that merely carrying an arm, or it says, being in the possession of a gun per se constitutes no offense. So we haven't violated any laws. The police seen us on the side of the road with our guns secured. We were afraid, so we got out with our arms, and I have a body camera that's been recording the whole time. So that way, if you're gonna publish this, or if you wanna, would you like to tune into my YouTube channel before we begin?
Sure.
So that way, if you're gonna publish this, or if you wanna basically get the inside scoop as to what's going on, you could basically have eyewitness news, because they're not letting the news in here, so no one really knows what's going on except for me and the police and now you. If you're going to be, open to being actually reporting the story for what it is,
What's he supposed to be afraid of? What's he supposed to be afraid of?
As far as what?
See, you got into the car and they were afraid. What were they afraid of?
I don't know. I mean,
Sounds weird. Why would you be getting out of your car with your guns? What are you scared of? Sounds like a weird thing to say.
so on the 1 year anniversary, we just wanted to give a recap, and as well read that last memorandum. That was the last thing I think that was filed that got denied, and then the next date, that was for their motions for trial, that that all of them got denied. Whatever.
They're out now, right? Or are they still in?
9 of them are out, 2 are still in.
Who are the 2 that are still in?
Brother Jamil and Brother Jamal.
Would they be reported to be the ringleaders, so to speak?
I know Jamal. I don't know what Jamil's situation is as far as.
Jamal's one of the main guys?
Yeah. And then all of them had, same charges and all that stuff. So it's odd that everybody's not out. That it went this far for two of them. I mean, was it maybe a month ago? I think it was a month ago. Brother Quinn and Tarif got released, or maybe some weeks. But this is where it's at when you're dealing with criminal enterprise. They're gonna do whatever it is that they do. Even if you go talk to Moors with right to travel stuff, taxes, fines, whatever. These individuals who are sitting in the seats of power are not gonna go by the law. No. They're gonna go by opinion. They're gonna go by statutes. They're gonna go by codes, they're gonna go by acts, they're not gonna go by what the actual law is. Because they know if they go by the law, they lose. Every time. You know, and again, the people's position of being blinded by these criminals and moving in favor of the criminals is why the criminals could do what they're doing right now. Not just to these Moors, but to any Moors. Go ahead, Moore. You were gonna say something?
No, that's why it still exists.
Yeah.
I mean, I was thinking of this earlier, the reason why it exists the way it is because we still are missing the fact that we need to come together.
Yep.
And we haven't, so we're gonna keep looking at these people to hold some version of, well, not version, but some correct position when that's not what this is about.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you know, you wanna say, oh, right to bear arms, and now we're gonna have some massive argument. We already know, the Prophet told us not to do this, right? So now we're sitting here, this is classic technique to just quell this to quench this movement, right? You know, keep the guy in there long enough till people get the idea that you don't want to be this guy, right? And that's what it's.
But again, they don't have to even do that because people without that people don't want to be this guy. So it's not even like it's.
So hold on. So
that's a move by them. Like
well,
they,
no,
you
the
know what I
move
mean?
is this because Jamal is probably the energy there, right? So what we do is we take the head out and we just cool that head on ice. That's why he's not getting out. Not for any other reason than the fact that if he gets out, his energy is going to change shit. And they've got that ability. But if we were together and there was a million guys at that courthouse, he would have been out.
Yep.
You keep looking for these people again
To do something right. Yeah.
Do something right. We're sitting around here whining.
Yeah.
Crazy.
And we already know that they're from the thing with Lonry, when Lonry had his situation, and 20 Moors were just there in a second.
Yeah.
It changed the whole energy of the thing.
Absolutely.
No different than when they had their first
Hearing or whatever?
situation, I guess, with law enforcement or whatever there, that they had a session and so many more showed up to the thing that they shut the doors of the court and said, hey, only the people who have court are allowed in here. You're not letting anybody up in here if your name's not on the docket for court. And again, going back to their operations and their tactics, what they do, they just switch the stuff 3 times, change the date 3 times, because they know Moors don't have it like that they're going to be able to go to court 3 different times, people coming from out of state and all that stuff. It's not going to happen like that,
We look into some things. Because no visually what he said, like for one thing, you don't even need a penknife.
Yeah.
That I understand. And bear in mind, he said, if I tell you everything, you're gonna fall asleep. So I can't tell you everything. But I can tell you, you don't even need a penknife. But you know what? Constitution said you have rights to bear arms. Exactly. And I'm telling you, enforce that Constitution. Exactly. He didn't tell you. He tell you don't even need a penknife. Constitution said you have rights to bear arms. And he said enforce the Constitution. And he didn't tell you everything because I can't tell you everything.
Tell you everything, you go back to sleep.
Yeah, you'll fall asleep.
You're enforcing it every day on you. You're not trying to use it. That makes no sense to me.
Yeah.
They use the Constitution every day on you.
Against you.
Against you.
Yeah.
And the 14th Amendment, they put you in that jurisdiction. Make you a person instead of the people.
Okay. And that's why you have to report it by know your rights about it and use it again.
But you see, I feel like even this discussion right now, you're still talking about going to the dirty card game.
I'm not saying about going to this. I'm saying enforce the Constitution.
Yeah, that's all.
But what I'm showing you is that they've trampled all over the Constitution.
Well, that doesn't mean
enforce it.
That doesn't mean not enforce it.
That doesn't mean that Joyce said the trampling stop. If the trampling stop.
What I'm saying is that what I think we're being told, in other words, is to try a different tactic. That's what I'm seeing. Because by enforcing that Constitution, they ain't even living up to it. So what are you enforcing? You're enforcing that within yourself. But what he's also telling you is that those cards were for your salvation, not theirs. So you're not about putting your cards up to them.
Not the cards.
Well, it's the point of the nationality, which is about what he's really telling us about coming together as a nation, and we're missing that point.
No, we're still.
Well, we are if we're looking at them for any kind of real fairness. Though he did say that there would be a few amongst them, but we have to come correct in an intelligent tone. I'm just telling you, you know what I'm noticing for us? If we don't get this, you see these guys over here that have this little throwdown here. Right? Once apart there, they didn't want me to. We got a little something. These people, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. It's very strange to me that we seem to have the answer to all of this, and that people don't want it.
Yeah, I was talking with somebody earlier. That's how good the sorcery is.
Exactly, absolutely.
That's how good the magic is that they ran on our people. That we have to convince some brown people that they're not black and they're not going with it. Now they clearly see that they're not that. They clearly see that. Well, if you're in America, you ain't never left your block. Are you African?
Yeah, it's crazy.
You know what I mean? It's
absolutely crazy. And then they're talking to Africans who don't call themselves black. They call themselves Ghanaians.
Yeah.
And all kinds of other shit.
Yeah.
But then they're black because of some dude who says that black power or some shit like that. It's crazy.
Yeah. It's absolutely nuts.
That's why I said only a handful will be saved.
Yeah. I mean, that's where it goes back to, you know, every time that, you know, going back to part of the thing with Omar and the thing with classes versus meetings or whatever, that, you know, the meetings are for the fingers that are in the ones that are in the hand, that's going to be saved. The classes are for the leftover. The classes are for the ones who aren't ready to take the steps to actually implement this and be this.
And I want to interject here for a second. I think it's also for the aspect of taking this to the hedges and the highway, because we talked about this before. Everyone deserves to know about this.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of us that don't know about it. And so this absolutely is integral to that part. The aspect of then telling you, here's the roadmap to your salvation. If you then want to throw it away, well, then that's on you. From my perspective, we're wasting. Our forces are so small right now that are paying attention to try and convince everyone of this. I think has started to
dissipate the energy.
No, starting to fold in on itself, because it's not. You know, I see this church next door here. You see these guys coming in here in droves, and then they're putting Jesus in the pot over here, and this little shit. You know, and then I started to realize, I came in here today and realized that I think all these guys are in on this stuff here.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? This whole church thing. This is them being organized. This is a group of people being organized over here.
Yeah.
This little clothing store that used to be here, the patty shop, the thing, the recording studio. That's all us.
Yeah.
In a sense.
Yeah.
This might be the Nawapians here, just undercover.
Yeah.
On a certain way. The church that they're doing the 501c3 next door. Right?
That's some Moors who don't wear their fezzes.
That's right. That's all it is. That's all it is. Going on the aspect that they know that this is some messed up shit, so we're going to play the we're black kind of thing.
Yeah.
It's all for them to get a benefit from that.
Well, yeah, and you know, the other part I've been asking my question too in the last little bit. What is this all about? What are we here for? I had this European guy talking about, well, we're just, you know, we're pure consciousness clothed in these bodies and we have smell, taste, and this is why, you know, we're here to experience these things through the flesh, because the flesh is the avatar that allows you to then feel these things. But ultimately, you know, we are going back to the, you know, which is analogous to the whole story of going back to the spirit, right? Being one with everything. But to me, there's something integral here with what we're doing. Nora, I was thinking about this. Remember we were wearing that last retreat and we saw that thing up in the stars. Remember that thing that moved?
Yeah.
In a way that obviously had intelligence beyond anything we'd seen. And understanding that, you know, if you're really to know that we're not alone out there, maybe we're here, and maybe there's certain aspects to the building, as in i.e. working out, that you need to get certain nutrients. You need to get to a certain, you know, be able to run an 8-minute mile or something like that. Be able to, you know, think freely. These are the things, these are the basics that you need to get to move to the next level. If there's a set of people making sure that we don't get that, then we're never going to attain that highest level of spirituality. Right? That's what the prophet said. A beggar nation can never attain that. Why would that be? Because we're asking for something for other people that we should be giving to ourselves and have for ourselves. And every other nation has it. So if that's the case, and then there's another, like he says, there's another battle unfolding on the soul plane. And you have to battle all that battle. But don't worry, Allah is there for you to battle. Then ultimately, we're coming up short on this.
You know, man, people that I met from other side of that doesn't never hear about no neutrality. Even Muslims never hear about it. Just think deep a little bit. If I'm over here, never hear of him, never heard of him. You're gonna be easy. That's why I always count on his few. So we all could talk what we want to talk, but it's always gonna be counting on his few. Whichever way you wanna push it. Whichever way you wanna go.
Did he also say after 100 years after, you wouldn't even know?
Not even know. For me personally, it takes 100 years after. It's after 100 years I find out.
What he said was, if that 50 years after I'm gone, if you're not careful, you won't even know that I'm here.
Yeah.
And then he went on to say something else, but it had nothing to do with the 100. But what it is that there were people that were careful enough.
I'm going to look into that again because I think I read something about 100 years.
Well, I got it wherever. I can read it out for you. Read it out for you right now.
Do you have the oral?
No,
Yeah, it was an oral
statement.
statement.
Just like with the flag there, 10 to 50,000 years. I heard about that flag.
When you look here, it's certainly different.
Do you have the oral statements over there?
Yeah, there should be in the.
So I tried to go to the bank, the fucking machine was off, so.
Yeah, no worries. Yeah, we'll organize. Yeah.
But even 50, that's a lot.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
I think he said 50 twice. That's how you got the 100 years. He said 50 years would have passed, and then.
Where is it? Part of it, then another 50 years, something else. Well, maybe that's what happened. 2 times he said it. Like 50 before you ever see the feds, and another 50 before you start wearing it. Something like that. So it's 100 years seen them wearing the feds.
And you see more of the feds from movies and like TV shows.
Yeah. Grab some of that shit back upstairs. Yeah. Full switch.
Is there any other any thoughts, concerns, questions?
So we got barbecue next week, right?
Yeah. So we have got barbecue. E.T. Seaton Park, spot number 4, next week Saturday, 12 noon to 5 p.m. Enter the park from 73 Thorncliffe Park Drive, which is Overly and Thorncliffe Park. Next week we have the Moorish Heritage School Summer Camp, July 4th to 8th. And July 11th to 16th, two-week camp. You could contact Canaanland, MHS.
What did you say?
The Heritage School Summer Camp. Canaanland.mhs@gmail.com. You could email them for any info, or if you want to support in any way. And temple would be open the July hours, Monday to Thursday, 3 p.m. to 8 p.m. Bookstore would be open, and we're also doing tours for the Moorish Museum. So you can book your tours, Canaanlandguide@gmail.com. to book museum tours. And sometime July we'll be starting up with the In the Park series, and we'll be calling meeting slash town hall over the next
I would say maybe
3
we should
weeks
put-
or something. 3 weeks, maybe August.
Yeah, sometime in August.
Yeah, sometime in August. And as well, the New Brunswick trip in August.
That would be before the trip.
I would say after.
Yeah, more likely after.
Okay.
More likely after, yeah.
So we need to start figuring out who's gonna be planning to attend. I looked on the Google, I think it's a 12-hour drive. Virginia kilometers, they have space there for us. They've got some tours set up for us and they're having a powwow, so.
Did you brothers in Montreal, like I was suggesting?
I forgot to mention that, but I mean, I think it was sent out on the email list.
Yeah, we sent out.
They'll definitely got it. People, we're gonna start meeting in the next month and a half for that investment group to, because I was looking over some of the trials. This is the other thing I think that we need to maybe focus on from the perspective, I just think about this as we're talking about this now, that the so-called law or the legal system was something that should be, in a sense, at least fair and equitable. What we've understood, just the same way as the government should be fair and equitable. What I've understood is this thing's been overthrown. It's not that it doesn't exist, it's been overthrown. So we've been looking at this, coming at them by trying to say that, hey, we have a superior position. But within anything, any framework or infrastructure that's been set up to so-called give the illusion of equity and parity, it's been infiltrated and corrupted. But that's the system. So we talked about this about a month ago, Daniels versus Canada, where what's been happening is the non-status indigenous that should be being protected or being supported, they are doing their sorcery to make sure that for you to get acknowledged or accepted, you need to sort of come under the auspices of Métis, which is another one of their
brands
or jurisdictional kind of interplays, and that we realize that we may have to dance, or we should at least, because we obviously can't convert or turn people's minds to what is right, we may have to battle these people at the corrupt card game. And so one of those things is possibly sort of dealing with some of their so-called, officers, i.e. solicitors, blah, blah, blah. So we're looking at maybe sort of trying to delve into aspects behind how we get funding for our organization. Right? Because I was talking with some guys today at my work, and they were talking about wanting to start their own business, and they were making the point that, hey, what if they had 40 hours a week to work on their projects? They thought because he was trying to start up this clothing company, and he was saying they spend about 4 hours a week on it. And they were saying to themselves how much more they could do if they were able to do this at full time. And I said, yeah, that's exactly what I was saying in my group, that what work could we get done if you were coming to work at the Moorish Temple on Monday?
Yeah.
You had 8 hours to tackle this shit.
Yeah.
8 hours of outreach, getting paid. How about 8 hours of going down to the city hall and battling these people?
Yeah.
It would be over for them.
Seeing them every day. Every day 10 a.m.
Every day. Exactly.
Every day 10 a.m. we're down there. In their face.
You know, people coming there to see us too.
Yeah.
Because at least our people are gonna hear things. And start to hear things and probably have them to know who they are. By seeing us doing what we do.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's where we're at right now. We've got a lot going on. Yeah, I mean, I think that the only other issue that we're seeing is that we have the forces that we have. This is it.
Yeah.
We now need to start to.
I'll need to just, take our little, our super juice and start doing what we gotta do. Honors to all the Moors. Honors to all the faithful members, doing the best that they can to get this word out. Any closing remarks or comments? We'll get closed out. Islam Moors, you found that thing, Omar?
Problem is this,
Yes.
I must have had an older one. This one's got all this new shit in it. I've never seen it, so
Oh.
I'm trying to find it. Shit. In my book. Right there. I'll get it for.
Yeah, no worries. 5 on the left, 2 on the right. Allah, the Father of the universe.
Allah, the Father of the universe.
Father of love.
Father of love.
Truth.
Truth.
Peace.
Peace.
Freedom.
Freedom.
And justice.
And justice.
Allah is my protector.
Allah is my protector.
My guide.
My guide.
And my salvation.
And my salvation.
By night.
By night.
And by day.
And by day.
Through our holy prophet.
Through our holy prophet.
Noble Juali.
Noble Juali.
Islam. Islam, Moors. Ashe. Peace to all the Moors. Negum will build soon. We'll probably build this week.
Our Moorish here, from was it from New Brunswick?
Did you talk to him?
Yeah.
Are you talking to him now?
No, he was on.